The woman at the door said it like she was doing her a favor. "I'm sorry, but this event is by invitation only." Serena Baxter didn't stop walking. She reached into her clutch, pulled out the ivory card with the gold-embossed seal of the Harrington Foundation, and held it out without looking at the woman's face. The security guard took it, studied it, handed it back, and stepped aside without a word. That was how most evenings like this began for Serena. A small moment of doubt from someone who didn't expect to see her there. A card. A step aside. She had learned, over the years, not to let those moments land anywhere permanent. The Harrington Foundation's annual philanthropy gala was held every June at the Belmont, a hotel in downtown Chicago that had been renovated twice since the 1920s and still managed to feel like neither era had entirely won. The ballroom on the fourth floor had 20-foot ceilings and chandeliers that cast everything in a gold that flattered no one and everyone equally. The tables were set with white linen and small cards that told you exactly where you were allowed to sit. And people moved between them with the practiced ease of those who had been attending events like this since childhood. Serena had not been attending events like this since childhood. She had grown up in Englewood, on the south side of Chicago, in a 2-bedroom apartment that housed her mother, her grandmother, her younger brother, and at various points, 3 cousins whose living situations were never entirely stable. Her mother worked nights at a hospital laundry facility and days at a dry cleaner on 63rd Street. Her grandmother watched the children and made sure they did their homework at the kitchen table before dinner, every night, without exception. She had been admitted to the University of Illinois on a full scholarship. She had taught herself to code in the campus library, because the department's computer lab closed at 10 and she had ideas that didn't stop arriving at 10. By the time she was 26, she had built a data security platform that 3 Fortune 500 companies were using. By 30, she had turned down an acquisition offer that would have made her comfortable for life, because she believed she was building something larger. At 41, she had been proven right. Kira Systems now employed 4,000 people across 7 cities, and its annual contract portfolio was valued at $2.3 billion. She did not talk about this at parties. She rarely talked about it at all. The man who had invited her to the gala was Walter Drummond, the foundation's board chair and the CEO of a regional bank that had been trying for 2 years to win Kira Systems' financial services contract. Walter was gracious, Harvard-educated, and genuinely committed to the foundation's work in childhood literacy. He was also the kind of man who believed that relationships were built in rooms like this one, over glasses of wine that cost more than Serena's mother used to make in a week. He had spotted her within 3 minutes of her arrival and crossed the room to meet her, 2 glasses in hand. "Serena, you came." He said it like he'd been worried she wouldn't. "I said I would," she said, and accepted the glass. They talked for a few minutes about the foundation's new reading program in South Shore, which Serena had quietly funded to the tune of $800,000 the previous year, anonymously. She had not told Walter this. She had not told anyone. The program coordinator knew and had been asked to keep the donor's name out of public materials and had done so. Walter introduced her to a few people as a tech entrepreneur from Chicago, which was accurate in the way that describing the ocean as a body of water was accurate. She didn't correct him. She shook hands, smiled at the right moments, and let the conversations move at whatever pace the other people set. She was standing near the east window, looking out at the city, when she heard the voice behind her. "Excuse me." She turned. The woman was perhaps 60 in a gown that was clearly expensive and cut with the kind of precision that required multiple fittings. Her hair was silver and set in a style that took effort. The man beside her was around the same age, tan in the way of someone who spent winters somewhere warm, wearing a tuxedo that fit him well. They were both looking at Serena with an expression she recognized. It was not quite hostility. It was the expression of people who had decided something before they had any information to base the decision on. "Yes?" Serena said. "Are you with the catering staff?" the woman asked. Her tone was not cruel, exactly. It was something worse than cruel. It was certain. The room was not silent. The string quartet was playing something from Vivaldi. Conversations continued at every other table, but the small cluster of people nearest to them had gone quiet in the particular way that people go quiet when they feel something is about to happen. "I'm a guest," Serena said. The woman's expression didn't change. "I'm sure there's been some confusion. This is a private event." "I know," Serena said. "I was invited." The man put his hand on the woman's arm, not to stop her, but in the way of someone who was deciding whether to get involved. He looked at Serena once, then looked away. That look away was its own kind of statement. "I think you should speak to someone at the door," the woman said. "They can sort out whatever mix-up has occurred." Serena looked at her for a moment. She thought about saying several things. She thought about Walter, who was across the room and had not yet noticed any of this. She thought about the security guard at the door, who had let her in without hesitation once he'd seen the card. She thought about her mother, who had taught her that the most powerful response to contempt was not anger, not tears, not explanation. Serena said nothing. She took her phone from her clutch. She did not call anyone yet. She simply held the phone, calmly, and looked at the woman in a way that made the woman shift slightly where she stood. "My name is Serena Baxter," she said, quietly enough that only the people immediately around them could hear. "I am the founder and CEO of Kira Systems. I was personally invited by Walter Drummond, and I was a keynote speaker at this foundation's dinner 2 years ago." She paused. "But none of that should matter for how you speak to someone." The woman blinked. The man's jaw moved slightly. Neither of them said anything. Serena looked at them both for one more second, then turned back to the window. Behind her, she heard the man say something low and urgent to the woman. She did not catch the words, and she did not try to. Her heart was moving faster than she would have liked, and she was doing the thing her grandmother had taught her, which was to breathe from the bottom of the lungs first, then the top, when something made you want to react before you were ready. Walter appeared at her elbow 4 minutes later. He had the slightly ruffled look of a man who had just been told something that alarmed him. "Serena, are you all right?" "I just heard." "I'm fine," she said. "That was Harlan Croft and his wife, Beverly," Walter said. He said the name like it was supposed to mean something, and it did, a little. Harlan Croft ran a private equity firm that had been one of the foundation's major donors for over a decade. "I want to apologize on behalf of—" "You don't need to apologize on their behalf," Serena said. "They can do that themselves." Walter looked uncertain. "Of course, yes. I'll speak to them." "That's up to you," she said. She looked at him steadily. "But I want you to know that I'm going to step outside and make a phone call, and then I'll decide whether I'm staying for dinner." Walter's expression shifted in a way she had seen before, on other faces. The calculation behind the concern. The awareness of what her presence or absence might mean, not just tonight, but in the larger sense. The Drummond Bank contract was still unsigned. She knew it. He knew it. She stepped out through the side exit onto the terrace, which was empty at this hour. The Chicago night was warm, the kind of June evening that made the city feel briefly forgiving of its winters. She could see the lake from here, a dark mass at the edge of the lit skyline. She called her chief of staff. "I need you to pull together everything we have on Drummond Bank's pending contract," she said when he picked up. "And I need the board meeting calendar for the Harrington Foundation. All donor records that are public." "Tonight?" he asked. "Tomorrow morning, first thing." She paused. "And find out who Harlan Croft has partnerships with in our sector." There was a brief silence on the other end. Her chief of staff had worked with her for 7 years. He knew when she was angry and when she was building something. This was both. "I'll have it ready by 7, he said. She stood on the terrace for another minute, after she hung up, not because she needed more time to calm down, but because she wanted to see the lake once more in the dark. She had grown up 9 miles from this hotel, and had never been inside it until she was 33 years old, invited to speak at a Women in Technology conference on the 2nd floor. She had stood in a different bathroom that night and told herself to breathe from the bottom first. She had not forgotten how to do that. She went back inside. The Crofts were standing near the bar, talking to another couple. Beverly Croft saw her come in and looked away quickly. Harlan did not look at all. Walter was hovering near the center of the room with the helpless expression of a man trying to manage something that had already moved past the managing stage. Serena walked to her table, sat down, and unfolded her napkin. The woman to her left introduced herself as a pediatric surgeon from Northwestern. The man to her right was the director of a nonprofit that provided after-school tutoring in Pilsen. They were both easy to talk to, and the conversation turned naturally and quickly to the kinds of things that made Serena remember why she gave money to foundations like this one in the first place. She stayed for dinner. She did not stay for the after-dinner remarks, in which Walter Drummond thanked the foundation's major donors by name from the podium. She heard him say, Harlan and Beverly Croft, with genuine warmth, the warmth of a long relationship, and she noted it without surprise and without particular feeling. She was already putting on her coat. The next morning, her chief of staff sent her a document at 6:58. She read it over coffee at her kitchen table in Lincoln Park, the same table where she worked most mornings before going into the office, the same table where she had closed the company's first major contract at 2 in the morning 8 years ago, the same table that had a permanent ring mark on the left corner from the mug her grandmother had used when she came to visit during the last winter of her life. The document contained what she had expected. Harlan Croft's private equity firm, Croft Meridian Group, had a significant stake in a data management company called Pallister Technologies. Pallister Technologies had been on Kira Systems' list of potential acquisition targets for 14 months. More relevantly, Pallister had recently submitted a competing bid for a federal infrastructure security contract that Kira Systems was also pursuing. A contract worth, over its 5-year term, approximately $900 million. The Crofts had not been rude to her by accident. People like the Crofts were rarely rude by accident. But she did not know yet whether last night had been a performance designed to unsettle her before a competitive process, or simply the automatic expression of a worldview that had never been seriously challenged. It didn't matter much. In practical terms, the response was the same either way. She called her general counsel at 7:15. I want a full competitive analysis of Pallister's federal bid, she said, and I want our public affairs team briefed by end of week. I think we should consider being more visible about the foundation work we do in Chicago. The anonymous donation to the South Shore Reading Program, her counsel asked. It's time for that to be on the record, Serena said. And the STEM pipeline program in Englewood, and the coding boot camp on the west side. She paused. People should know who's doing the work. She hung up and sat for a moment with her coffee going cold. She was not doing this out of anger. She wanted to be precise about that, at least with herself. Anger was a fuel she had used sparingly and carefully over 41 years because she had learned early that it burned hot and fast and left you with less than you started with. What she was doing now was something different. It was the careful, deliberate assembly of facts into a structure that would hold. The story of the gala, it turned out, did not stay at the gala. Beverly Croft had mentioned the incident to 2 women at her table, framing it, apparently, as a story about an aggressive woman who had made a scene. One of those women had told her husband. Her husband happened to know the pediatric surgeon from Northwestern, who had been sitting to Serena's left at dinner, and he mentioned it to her in passing, getting the details wrong in the way that second-hand stories always do. The surgeon, who had found Serena immediately and genuinely impressive over dinner, texted a mutual acquaintance to say that she'd heard Beverly Croft had caused some kind of trouble at the gala, and that the target was, of all people, Serena Baxter. The mutual acquaintance was a tech journalist. Serena received a call from that journalist on a Thursday, 9 days after the gala. She declined to comment. She was not going to participate in a story about what had happened to her. She was building something else, and it did not require a story about what had happened to her. 3 weeks after the gala, Kira Systems' public affairs team quietly released a press statement announcing the company's formal partnership with the Southside Education Collective, including the retroactive disclosure of Serena's $800,000 contribution to the reading program in South Shore. The statement did not mention the gala. It mentioned Serena's upbringing in Englewood. It mentioned her grandmother. It mentioned the kitchen table. The statement was picked up by 4 Chicago outlets and 1 national business publication, which ran a profile they had been trying to schedule for 2 years, and that Serena had previously declined. The profile was published on a Tuesday morning. By Wednesday afternoon, Walter Drummond had called twice. She called him back on Thursday. "Serena," he said, "I wanted to say again how much I regret what happened at the gala." Beverly's behavior was, "Walter," she said, "I'm not calling about that." She let a beat pass. "I'm calling to let you know that we're going to move in a different direction with the financial services contract." There was a silence. "I see," he said finally. "I hope the foundation continues to do good work," she said. "I'll remain a supporter of the literacy programs. That's separate." "Of course," he said. His voice had the quality of a man working hard to keep something level. "Is there anything that could change?" "No," she said. "It was not unkind. It was simply accurate." The federal infrastructure security contract was awarded to Kira Systems 4 months later. The announcement came on a Friday, in a government procurement document, that most people would never read, and that meant, in practical terms, that $900 million over 5 years would flow through a company that had been built by a woman from Englewood, who had taught herself to code in a campus library, and who still worked, most mornings, at a kitchen table with a permanent ring mark on the left corner. Pallister Technologies filed a formal protest of the contract award, which was standard procedure and went nowhere. Harlan Croft sold his stake in Pallister Technologies the following spring. Serena read about it in a 2-paragraph item in a trade publication, over coffee, at the kitchen table. She read it once, finished her coffee, and went to work. She had spoken at a high school in Englewood the week before, at the invitation of a coding program that Kira Systems had quietly funded for 3 years. A girl in the 3rd row had asked her what she did when people underestimated her. Serena had thought about it for a real moment, not the polished moment that speakers perform when they want to seem thoughtful, but an actual moment. "I let them," she said. "And then I get to work." The girl in the 3rd row had written it down. Serena had noticed, and it had meant more to her than the $900 million contract, though she did not say that out loud, because some things you keep at the kitchen table, and some things you carry into rooms where the chandeliers cost more than a year of your mother's salary, and you learn, over time, which is which.